Are you ready for some weird negotiations? Stay tuned and I'll give you some of my weirdest.
You better get fired up.
Guys, what's going on? Good to see you. Happy Monday. I'm here every single Monday at 11 o'clock where we go through the hottest things in today's real estate market. And today we're talking about some weird negotiations, right? When the market changes, you start to see people's negotiation habits changing. You start to see what they're doing changing. And so I thought it'd be kind of fun to bring out some different negotiation tactics that I've seen. I think these are all negotiation tactics I've seen work at least once, but I'll go through it with each one here. I listed out a few. So number one, artwork. I remember going through a home. This was probably around 2020, maybe 2021. And it was a home on the canal in Port St. Lucie, had beautiful artwork throughout the property. And it tied everything together, right? And the wife said, listen, we love the home. We'll pay full price, but we want the artwork to stay. The seller said, man, I got all this artwork from, I don't remember what it was, like Target or not Home Depot, Home Goods, Home something, whatever. And she said, this artwork is not expensive. All the artwork throughout the house is probably worth $1,000. So go after it, right? So they got all of that artwork. They felt like they had a big win. The seller felt like they gave almost nothing. The seller got full price and the buyer felt great about it, right? So don't get caught up, at least this is my opinion, don't get caught up in personal property as a buyer. You don't want to lose the house. That's the important thing. It's the major asset because you're trying to negotiate $5,000, $10,000 or here $1,000 worth of artwork. But man, it's not bad asking. Sometimes you get what you ask for, right? So ask. They got it. Number two, and I've shared this story before. It's probably my favorite story. I had the buyer. And we came in on a property, and in they had two living rooms, and one was like a typical living room, typical family room. The other one was like a man room, right? Had a pool table in it, had a dartboard in it, and then all along the perimeter of the not the ceiling, but like the top 2, 3, 4 feet right below the ceiling were framed jerseys. Footballs that have been signed, baseballs that have been signed, and you could see all of it was New York. These people were obviously New York fans. I'm assuming they're from New York. And they were big Jets fans. I found the biggest player at that time a signed jersey. And I said, hey, I know we're in multiple negotiations here. This, I believe, was 2021. We can only go so high on price. We're kind of limited on price because of what we're approved for. We can only do so much in our offer. What if you guys were to give, the jersey was not expensive. It was like $200-$300 from memory. What if you guys were to promise that you would give a signed jersey of this player with the Jets to the seller at closing if they accepted your offer? And they laughed at me and said, Joe, whatever you've got to do to get this accepted, go nuts, but we have no problem with that. I presented that, and that seller was beyond happy. They loved the idea. They thought it was really sweet, cute, thoughtful. And they said, yes, this is the thing that's going to get you the property. And I remember we were a funded deal, and the offer that we beat out was a cash deal. But he loved the fact that we added the jersey in there and ended up moving forward with it. So there's another thing where it's kind of a weird tactic, but if you're paying attention, you can see what the person loves. Man, you can add that to an offer, and you can get your buyer's offer accepted. Number three, 1 week rental annually for free. Okay, so this was a property that we had out on Hutchinson Island. It was a condo, and they had purchased the condo so that they could use it for the family and vacation out there. And they thought they were going to go there maybe once every month, every 2 months, and they really ended up going about once a year. So they were kind of disappointed with that. So the buyer came in really low, and the seller said, listen, I don't really like your offer. However, it is a big deal to us if we're able to use the property every year. So I tell you what, if for 5 years, we can use the property for a 7-day period once a year, right? And we've got to give you so much notice and blah, 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 all these different exceptions and asterisks. If you'll agree we get it for a week a year for 5 years, we'll accept your ridiculously low price. The buyer said, no big deal. We love that. They had to work out some of the details there on notice and everything. Notice was the big thing for them, but they got it done. So now we had something in writing that stated they got 1 week a year for 5 years. They're able to spend that time with their family. Now, we're only 2-3 years into that deal, so they've still got 2 or 3 more visits on that property. Really weird. I've never seen that happen. I've seen, hey, I want to live here for another week or another month or something like that. I'm going to lease it back, whatever. But I've never seen the reoccurring annual visit. I thought that was really cool. By the way, I want to give a tip. If you are doing a lease back, right? So you own the property, a buyer comes in and they say, hey, I'm sorry, you're the buyer. And you come in, you're going to buy the property on January 1st. And the seller says, I want a lease back. I want to stay here for the month of January, but I want to stay there for free. And then in February 1st, you can take the property over. Don't ever do that. You still want a lease. That lease can be for $1, but it's got to be for some sort of consideration. So you've got a legal lease. So if anything happens to that property, you can take them to court and you are protected, right? I would also say to that owner who's selling and wants to stay there for a month, you want a lease, because if something happens and you don't have a lease, you also may not be protected. So make sure you get that in writing. All right, next weird negotiation tactic. Pay off, okay, this is pretty normal. Pay off the mortgage and pay equity and monthly payments over 3 years. So what does that look like? Let's look at a $400,000 home, okay? In this particular situation, it was an older woman. She was single, and she was going into assisted living, okay? And they had figured out whatever the monthly assisted living cost was. I don't know what it is, but let's just say it was $1,000. This was probably 5-6 years ago. And they said, okay, what do you owe on the house? She owed maybe 50 grand. They said, okay, cool. We're going to pay off your $50,000 mortgage. We're going to pay all of your closing costs plus our closing costs. We're going to pay all the commissions for the 2 realtors involved, but you're still owed that $350,000, right? Because we're giving you 4, but we've only paid off your $50,000 mortgage. Where's my other $350,000? What we're going to do is we're going to make $1,000 payments a month so you can pay for your assisted living. And then we'll have a balloon payment after 3 years, okay? So we'll have made 36 $1,000 payments for a total of 36 grand. And then that 350 minus the 36, which is 314, that is what will be owed in 3 years, all right? Now, for a lot of people, that will not work. And by a lot, I mean 99+%. For this lady, it worked perfectly. The buyers got what they wanted. The seller got what they wanted. And honestly, that lady sold for more than she would have been able to sell in that market, right? Why would the buyers do that? Because they knew they're not paying anything on that remaining $350,000, okay? There's 0% interest. So maybe they paid $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 more for the property. But when you compare that $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 more compared to the interest rate you would be paying, even a low interest rate, over the span of those years, you're going to see that they probably save significant amounts of money. In addition to the fact that the market went up significantly over that span of 2 or 3 years, right? So it worked for everybody. Am I going to see this often? No. Do I get it asked about often? Yes. I get a lot of investors who ask about that. Another thing that they do is they ask for subject to offers to be accepted, meaning, hey, we're going to take over your property. We're not going to pay off, in the same example, we're not going to pay off your $50,000 mortgage. But what we're going to do is we're going to make payments on that $50,000 mortgage in addition to, maybe as an example, $1,000 payments a month to you. And again, we got a 3-year balloon, or maybe it's a 5-year, a 2-year, a 1-year, whatever it is you negotiate, balloon. And now we're going to, and maybe they even add an interest rate. Hey, on that remaining $350 that's owed, we're going to pay you 5% interest or 8% interest or whatever the two parties come together and agree on. We're going to pay that interest rate. Now you've got yourself a deal, and it's subject to, it's based on that mortgage being paid by the buyer, but it's still in the seller's name. There's all kinds of pros and cons with this, but that's what a lot of investors are asking for right now. All right, all new appliances. This is kind of a short story, but the person just said, hey, you've got all white appliances. I don't like white appliances. I need stainless steel. If you get the package I want, it's going to cost X. Let's say it's $6,000, $7,000. We're not going to ask for a price reduction. We'll pay you full price, but we're going to ask that you get the appliances we want installed before closing. Will you do it? They said yes. Boom. The two sides got what they want. The seller looked at it like, hey, we just got $6,000 under asking. We would have taken that anyway. The buyer thinks, hey, we got this gorgeous house and brand new appliances that we wanted. Cha-ching. What a great deal. Everybody's happy. All right. Here's another one. A 1-year lease for the seller at a reduced price. Now, I've only seen 1 year. I think I've only seen that once. I see a week or 2 weeks or a month a lot, right? Because they want time to get into their next place or time to move their stuff out. But I don't see a year a lot. But that's doable too, especially if you've got an investor purchasing the property. So now you've got all your stuff there. You're comfortable there. It's convenient there. You want time to transition from job A to job B, or from location A to location B, or from home A to home B. And a month just isn't going to cut it. You can say, hey, you're probably going to lease this thing out anyway. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. What if you were to lease it out to me, right? I will take that on. And if you're willing to do that, maybe I cut my price by 5%, 10%, whatever it is. Would you be willing to do that? In this case, one time, I saw that happen, right? Ended up being a great deal for both sides. This was a goofy one. This was actually a personal deal, and this was back in probably 07 or 08. The seller wanted more than what we were willing to pay. And it wasn't that far off, but we weren't willing to pay it, and they couldn't drop because they didn't have the equity built in to do so. So we're saying, hey, we'll do anything as long as it makes number sense. We're looking at it from an investor standpoint. So we said, hey, you got 2 golf carts here. You got a fishing boat here. When we look at the value of all these things, it's about what we're short on. I don't think those things are very important to you. And it would get this goal accomplished of you getting rid of your house, which you don't want to necessarily get rid of the house, but you want to get rid of that massive payment. You're going to do that. Would you be willing to chip in the 2 golf carts in the boat to get it done? They said, yes, bada bing, bada boom. We got ourselves a deal, right? Again, very outside the box, but we're not just thinking about the property. We're thinking about everything included. You can, I don't want to say you can only do that. It's easier to do it if you're an investor, because all that matters to an investor is numbers. Do the numbers work out? If they do, and I can make a profit, then hey, my business model is working. If it doesn't, well, then it's not working. It doesn't matter how fair or unfair it is. It either works or it doesn't work, right? If you've got someone buying a house because they love the house and they're going to buy it for personal reasons, for their personal family, they usually don't care about the seller kicking in personal property because the price is too high. They're going to say, no, I want a reasonable price. Not always, but usually. In this one case, because it was an investor involved, now it's a little bit easier to get done. All right, we got one more. Yeah, this was a goofy one too. And this one was back, it had to be 21. I did all kinds of goofy things in 2021 because you were coming in with offers and you were going to lose, and you couldn't necessarily come up $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 more. You didn't necessarily want to drop your inspection contingency, even though they were pushing you to do so. So we had to think outside of the box. This family had photos all over the house of Disney. And when we were talking to them, it was a showing, and they had stayed at the showing. We started talking about it, and they said, yeah, we've been there. I don't know what it was. I'm making this up, but 4 or 5 times. It's the coolest thing in the world. Oh my gosh, I wish we had season passes. So I went back to the seller or the buyers, and I said, hey, you can try to come up $10,000, $20,000, but A, that's expensive, and B, I don't know that you're going to get approved for it. Or you can go spend far less on a season pass for these guys to Disney. That's going to be an emotional attachment thing. And man, I can wrap that up with a beautiful bow and make it look like you're appealing to their emotions, right? You really care about them. You want to give them something. And they did. The buyers thought, this is a phenomenal idea. This is really going to be something that they enjoy. How cool would this be? How cool would it feel to be able to give these people something that's that meaningful to them versus an extra 5, 10 grand? I know we all want money, but there's not really a lot of emotion. I don't want to say there's no emotion attached to money, but there's a lot more emotion attached to a Jets jersey or a Disney pass, right? It's just different. It's different. It's meaningful. It's thoughtful. It's outside the box. So that got that deal done. So those are the weirdest things I could think of. If you've been involved in a transaction where you've seen something weirder, man, put it in the comments. We'd love to see it. And if you've got a topic for next week's video where we talk about the hottest things in the Port St. Lucie market, I'd love to see it in the comments or on a private DM via Facebook. Guys, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Take care.